Okay, so welcome. Thank you for, hello everyone. Hello sisters. Thank you for coming for tonight's Thriving Thursday. So for I think everyone here is in the WhatsApp chat group, right? I asked before what would be a good topic to talk about, and the winner was writing a project proposal. So this is my topic today. What makes a great project proposal? So it takes a lot of research, planning, and preparation to do a project proposal. It takes time, diligence, and commitment. We will not be able to tackle everything about proposal writing today because we only have a short time. But I hope it will. This talk will give us an understanding and basic knowledge on what makes a great proposal. So let's go to our outline. We will talk about the process of planning and preparation, then the components that are usually included in a project proposal, and lastly, I want to share about tips on writing a proposal. So since we only have little time, you may read further. I gave references at the end of the slide, and there's a toolkit there that is very helpful on proposal writing. Okay, so on the process, am I too fast? Okay, so on the process, next slide, please. Proposal writing begins with planning. It cannot be done with one sitting. It's a tedious work, and funders will easily know if you did it in a hurry or carelessly, right? So there are three processes. First, for example, you saw a call for proposal, or there's a request for a proposal. What would be the first thing you do? First is you consult with your team, because proposal writing is teamwork. You need the input of everyone in your organization on what you should do on this project, how are you going to implement that in the community, and who will be your target partners or networks that you're going to tap. So that's a lot of meeting. And next would be the needs assessment. So that would be gathering data, research to back up your proposal. You need to convince your donors that you deserve the fund. So you need some primary data um, through interview with your stakeholders or recipients, or what do you call that? Focus group discussions. It depends on what methods you're going to assess those needs. And the next would be solution. You have to develop solution. How is your organization, how will you as an organization fill the gaps based on the data you gathered? So those are just the simple process in writing a proposal. A proposal can be a project, a grant, a program, business, or a research. So next would be components. We will quickly go through the components of a proposal. Each funder has different eligibility criteria and requirements for proposals. So to save time and effort on your part, become familiar with the potential funders' specific requirements, questions, and guidelines. Some funders do not accept unsolicited proposals. Others may require a brief letter of inquiry before submission of a full proposal. So it really depends on that funding agency. So we'll just quickly go through with the components. If you have questions or clarification, you could raise them after the presentation. So, okay. Components of a proposal. Okay, so first is the organization profile. So what is the history of your uh, organization? Donors need to know that your organization has the capacity to implement the project. And who is your focal contact? So the name of the person they will contact and your address and contact information. Next is number 2, your introduction. So this is where you propose your project and make sure that it reflects your vision and mission of the organization. And what is the context in which you work? Like, you could describe the situation. For example, in Cameroon, there's a conflict going there, and the and women should be the you know they are vulnerable to this conflict that's going on. So you cite the context on which you work and why is it critical to the situation right now. So there are a lot of consequences because of that context, right? And so you write it down, and then you also write what are the issues or problems that your project will address. So that's part of your introduction. And there are a lot of tools and methodologies on how to identify problems in your community. So that would be on the next slide. This is just an example. It's a problem and cause analysis. So you start with the problem. Maybe it's the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon, or it could be gender violence or the rise of gender violence during COVID times, or what, climate change. You start and you ask, why is this happening? And then and if you have an answer, you have another why until you go back to the root of the problem. For example, this is a very simple problem. Ran through a red light, why? I was late for work, why? I woke up late, why? The alarm clock broke, why? Didn't check it, work, why? Forgot to do it last night. So because she forgot to check the alarm clock, she ran through a red light. So that's how you make a problem and cause analysis. So you see, writing a proposal takes time. It takes a lot of thinking, analysis, research, preparation, and it takes a lot of consultation with experts too. So next, number 3. Next is your project description. What are your project goals, objectives, and activities? If you are familiar on the problem tree analysis, you can just shift it to become an objective tree, and that will those are just methods. So let's just go through this. So what are the expected results? What changes you want? What is the result of your project? What is the impact to the community when you implement your project? Who are your partners? Will you be partnering with a school, a church, government, or another NGO or an international NGO? So put that into writing. Okay, so number 4. Next slide, please. Okay, resources. Who are the people who's going to be involved in this project? So it's the people in your organization, or you could hire experts to be involved in that project. And you also need to write the timeline of your activities. So we'll start the project on September. These are activities. These are the budget. These are very detailed work. When we talk about resources, the staffing, who will do the administrative work, who will go to the field, who will be in the operations, who will do the monitoring and evaluation. So you put it all there. And the budget includes the salary of your people. How much will they earn during this project? And what are the tools that you need and how much? So very detailed work. On, but it again, it depends on the funding agency. So number 5, monitoring and evaluation. So you need the fund. It depends on the funding agency. Some funding agency doesn't require this under proposal call. Some require this, especially those with really huge funding, like so how will you monitor the progress of your project? So you will present your tools there, like maybe we will have a quarterly meeting on to assess the outcome of the project, or we will have a yearly assessment on, we will have a visit to the communities. So it depends on you what tools you're going to make or to use for the monitoring of the project. And of course, at the end of the project, you will also evaluate if you were able to hit your goals, objectives, and target or not, right? So next is sustainability. So what happens when the project ends? How will you show the funding agency that your project is sustainable, right? So you have to write it down. You could say, well, with the increased training of the women in our community, they will be able to sustain themselves, get new jobs, something like that. Or it could be um, we put the girls back to school instead of um, marrying at a young age. So these girls will be able to get good employment and provide for their own. They will be empowered and independent women, or whatever it is, that even if the project has ended, you will continue to do your activities and have impact in the community. Okay, so I think that is on the components. Again, it depends on the it depends on the funding agency, which of those components do they want to be included in the proposal writing. Okay, so next will be the tips. So if you have questions or clarifications or something that you will add, you could just raise them after the presentation. Okay, so tips. I got this actually from online, these 10 tips, and I think these are really good tips to consider when writing a proposal. So number 1 is have great content. Be clear about why and for whom you are writing the proposal. Okay, so if the funder is looking for sexual a project against sexual violence or gender-based violence, and you are focused on peace, of course you will not submit your proposal to that agent, to that funder or donor. So the proposal is the donor's basis whether or not they will form a working relationship with you. Give them the impression that you are thorough, careful, and committed to do excellent work right from the start. There are many things that that can help your proposal, but the most important part is to have great content. So even if your proposal is well written, it has the best technical aspect, but if your content is not coherent, you will not be awarded. The grant will not be awarded. So your primary focus is developing a great project that would convince the donor to fund it, right? So that's why you have to work out you have to meet with your teams. What is a great project that would convince our donor? So take into account the needs of the recipients of your project partners, of your project. How does your project fit into broader strategies? How does it align to the sustainable development goals or your country's development goals? Which gap are you trying to close? So if you are clear on this questions, then you are going to develop a great project that would stand out from the rest. Okay, so number 2 on tips, read and understand the guidelines of the funder. So sometimes I don't know if any one of you have submitted a proposal, like you have a ready proposal and you just copy and paste it or just submit it to the funders because it's already, you're so proud of the proposal that you made, but actually you need to tailor fit it in accordance to what the donor wants. So even if you already have a ready proposal of your organization, you still need to edit it, revise it according to the guidelines of your donor. Strictly follow the guidelines. And because a lot of proposals fail by not following the guidelines. Like you would think our project was better than the one that was granted, that organization that was granted the award. How come they have it? Maybe you fail to follow the guidelines, and that's very important. Um, like the small details, the font size, the spacing, the formatting, the the if it should be should it be mailed, should it be written in online. Those guidelines are very important, and you really need to fulfill all the requirements, everything the funder wants, because if you could not fulfill everything, better not submit, because you'll just be wasting their time and your time as well, right? So follow the instructions for the proposal submission. If there's a deadline, better if you will submit it before the deadline, because funders review a lot of proposals a year, and they will just quickly dismiss what is not those application that did not follow their instructions. Come to think of it, if you cannot follow their instruction, they couldn't trust you to follow their instruction. How can they trust you with the money that they're gonna send you? Or will they be able to trust you with their partnership if for just a simple instruction you didn't you failed to follow? Okay, so next is work on the proposal as a team. I mentioned it before. It doesn't matter how big or small your organization is. Just work as a team. Even if there's one proposal writer, you still need the input of everyone on the team. So maybe you're the best writer for that proposal, but you're not so good with the budgeting. So you need your accountant to help you with that, or you're so good with the vision and the projects, but your weakness is on the details. You need someone like Manasa who's very meticulous with details and presentations. So it's really a team effort. So on writing a proposal. Next is make sure you use the right terminology. So that's also important. What is the accepted terminology by this funder? And that should be seen on your proposal writing. So many applicants are not clear on their vision, mission, goals, and objectives, and sometimes they mix them up. So sometimes they mix the expected outcomes, output, and impact. You should know the difference between outcome, output, and impact. And make sure that you clearly understand all these terms and use them in the right sense. So if you do not understand those terminologies, research, Google, and analyze, study. That's why it takes at least a month to prepare a proposal. It's not like, help me with the proposal, and then in just one sitting you just write it and submit it. That's already a failure, right? So next is ensure that format is clean and easy to read. So avoid using jargons and acronyms. Even before anybody will read your proposal, just make it sure that it is clean. So because that's the first thing that the donor will see, the formatting, the alignment, the spacing. So just by one look, it's appealing to the eyes already. So the way you package your proposal is very important as well. Next is cite your unique situation. What is your situation? Like the context I talked earlier, what is it? What makes it unique from the rest of the applicants? So you need to articulate that. You need to write that in our community, these are what women are doing. These are what we are doing, and this is the impact that we made so far, and we need more funding so we could reach more communities. Anything. You are unique. You as a woman are unique. Your project is unique as well. That's why cite that situation. Next is use data and case study to make your point. Like I said, during the process, you need to gather all the data. You have to assess the needs of your community. So it could be through interview. It could be through the data that is available from international organizations like World Bank, UN, but the best data is coming from the community itself, because that will support the uniqueness of your situation and your project. Use them to, this data is very important, because funders, they are not drawn to feelings and emotions. They need science, they need data to support why we are going to help you. Okay, next is pay good attention to your project budget. So sometimes you have a good project, you have a great team, you have a unique situation, but you fail in listing down your budget well, your finances. So this is very important. Budgeting is very important in project proposal writing. Many organizations do not like this task and they do not pay attention to it, but this is very important, because this is writing your project in numbers. How much will the operations be in a year's time, monthly? How much are you going to spend in the community, in your administration, in your staff? Detailed work in budgeting. Make sure you use the right format for your budget and stick to it. So before you write a proposal, develop your budget and maybe hire someone who's very good with math to check and finalize your budget. Okay, so, and also on budgeting, make sure you're using the right currency, and that sometimes we fail to do that. Like maybe the funder wants the currency to be in US dollars, but you are writing it in your local nation's currency. So just be consistent that if the funder wants it to be in dollars, then you also write it in dollars. Then always, always double check your numbers. Budgeting, again, is very important in proposal writing. Next and last, have someone proofread your application. Sometimes we are so focused on the content that we misread, or we couldn't see the errors anymore. So it's really good to have someone to go over the project. That's why your team is very important to be there to just go through the grammar, the math, the staffing, the project, the consistency, the coherency of your project. It's very important. It makes sense that someone else outside who is not familiar, outside of the organization, who is not familiar of the project, would proofread it for you. So they will, sometimes your team would be so engrossed they couldn't see any flaws anymore. But if you hire someone to proofread it, they would be able to check some errors. So I guess that's my presentation for today. And there are references. A lot of what I shared are on the links that I I have on the references. And there's a toolkit there on what kind of funding should I approach. Should I go to a, a government funding, an NGO funding, a church funding, or whatever? There's a toolkit there that would be a great help for those who wants to write proposals. So that's it. Thank you for listening.